It's great. Good morning. Welcome to the Columbia Open Space Committee regular meeting on Thursday, February 20. Motion to approve the minutes January 16th. Second. So it's 3-4, nobody against, 1 abstention. Morning, Paul Zader.
Good morning.
Honor.
All right.
Hi there.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, we just reached, you came just in time. Talk to us, Honor.
You're on.
Sorry, what?
You're on. Have any news for us? Any reports?
Well, so I am filling in for Callie. Callie is on the West Coast and couldn't make the meeting. She has been sort of managing the contract and the progress with the IMBA and the state. And so they had a meeting recently. I think IMBA, are they planning on attending this meeting?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Liz Graves is supposed to check in shortly.
Okay, so hopefully they'll be able to give a bit of an update there. But as I understand it, they have put together some preliminary, and some of you have been involved, documents for review by the state. The state has, I think, taken a look, and I mean, I would just defer to them to, explain how that meeting went, because I actually wasn't on it, but I'm here to answer any questions for TPL and sort of to listen in mostly today about the progress and hear where things are headed.
Great. We're glad to see you. Has Liz checked in yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right. Any news on Camp Laurel?
Geez, where are we with Camp Laurel? We are under contract. I think you all knew that. We're hoping to close this September. The update there at least since I last presented to this group about it, is that we're under contract and we're working with Avalonia Land Conservancy, who is going to own the property once we close. So originally we had sort of looked to Joshua's Trust. That was they weren't super comfortable with the dam, and the sort of liability that would put on the organization. And so they sort of passed on ownership, and Phil Chester at the town of Lebanon, sort of connected us to Avalonia, which we've known for a long time, and we've worked together on projects, but we hadn't really thought that this was their territory. And they don't have any property in Lebanon, so this would be their first one. But the Avalonia, the benefit there is they're a little bit of a bigger organization from a land trust perspective, and they have a little bit of a higher risk tolerance around the dam. And so we are working to figure out exactly what needs to happen there. And so the dam is obviously a concern. It's, out of compliance. It needs upgrades. It needs, it's all sand and gravel. And typically that's not really a good substrate for a dam. You want it to, not be able to wash out. And so it needs to be replaced with, I mean, I'm no engineer, but with, I would guess like, a rocky substrate that would, hold it in place a little bit better, clay and rock. And so that needs to be analyzed for, what the cost is. But ultimately we applied for an OSWA grant to the state of Connecticut for 1.5 million. We're optimistic that we'll get funded at some level by OSWA. There's a lot of infrastructure on the property, so the state's gotta, we've got to work together to sort of figure out where the easement's going to go. Hey Liz, I was just giving an update on a local property. Then I'll hand it back over to you. And so the 1.5 million is, we're hopeful, fingers crossed, everything points to this being, a really good project for the state, for state funding, and they've got a lot of money this year. So they should be able to fund our project and most others. And there is a bill in the legislature that Kathy Austin put forward to allocate $400,000 towards the acquisition. Those like bills that are project specific, or, it's so hard for me to know if it'll get any legs, because every legislator has a dog in the fight if it were down to like, getting money for their projects. And so we've got to sort of rally some support behind that bill and write some testimony. And we hope that people that care about the project write testimony, so that when it goes to committee, there's the folks voting on it can see that there's a lot of support. We've also, gotten $200,000 sort of verbally committed from the town. It's been recommended to the Board of Selectmen. They recommended it also. And so it just has to go to vote once we have some of the other funding secured. So the OSWA grant, once that would be secured, we would go to a town meeting vote for the 200,000 from the town of Lebanon. So that's all going fine. The Girl Scouts are retaining about 13 acres to continue day camp, have their administrative building there, have their dock, be able to, open that to the troops that, know and love that camp. And there's a lot of sentimental attachment there. And so we're hoping to put out a press release in the next few weeks about the partnership and the protection, and, sort of get the word out on full blast.
Which 13 acres? Is it the part that's closest to Clubhouse Road?
Yeah, it is. It's along the frontage there, and along the pond. So sort of the southwest side of the pond, and it sort of wraps around there. And they've got a campsite called Peaceful Waters and Crafty's Corner, and So that is the part they'll retain.
I used to work there.
Yeah. So that part is a really nice spot, but I mean, when camp's not in session, they can potentially open it up to the public too. But there's a lot of property there. It's like, the total project is something like 380 acres. So it's great.
It's great. Have you had any progress with the last remaining 3 properties on the west side of the Columbia Atlantic on the Hebron border? Silverstein, Lucarelli, and Jakes.
No, I've reached out to Lucarelli to have a conversation a couple times. I've left messages. I have not heard anything back. I have not gotten a call back.
Has a connector piece from that camp to the park come up at all? like, what, somebody had said that there, Rob, was that you, that there was
No, it was the
a way to connect?
Oh,
The two-
on Tobacco Street?
Tobacco Street, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you mean to the Airline State Park Trail, connecting it that way?
Well, even that,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we had a preliminary conversation a couple months ago with a landowner about an easement over his property to connect to the Airline State Park Trail. You know, we've got to work on that. It's not a done deal by any means, but he was receptive. And so once we've gotten a better handle on the funding for Camp Laurel, we would, I mean, I could do it now and start pursuing the trail easement, because having that be connected to the Airline State Park Trail is I think of a lot of interest to the town and to, you know, users of that trail.
yes,
Cool.
good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning, Liz.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
Sorry, it took me a minute to find the Zoom link to the meeting. But yeah, I'm excited to be here today and share some concepts for the state park with all of you. I can get started by sharing screens if everyone's ready for that. We can get right into it. Let's see. Great. Is everyone able to see the map and the document?
Yes,
Hopefully it's not too small. So we had a meeting last week, 2 weeks ago with Deep. So we've been able to start moving through this process of our site assessment and concept development, and they're at a point now. We've had a lot of internal talks with different departments in Deep, and so I think they're comfortable at this point sharing what we've come up with for a concept, and yeah, today getting feedback from all of you on that, and then hopefully, it's unfortunate Tom was saying he wasn't able to be here today, so I might try to have a meeting with him if he's not there. But yeah, from our site visit in the fall, so we've done some desktop analysis and some desktop concept development, and that's what we have here in this document. And I'll share this with you all after the meeting and after we go through kind of what's in here and any questions you all have. But the first thing we did was really look at train suitability and kind of analyze the site from things we saw while we were there in person, and then other underlying factors such as you know, soils and grades and other natural you know, wetlands, those kind of features that kind of limit what is possible and things that we want to avoid, but also looking at things that we found is really desirable about the site and potential for trails and trail connectivity based on those desirable access points and other points of interest within Mono Pond State Park. So this is really getting into that terrain analysis. As you can see, there are quite a few wet areas that are known on the site, and things that we also observed on the site. As well as an inventory of the existing trails that are there, which is about 20 miles of both official and unofficial trails that were on site, whether user created or road or actually adopted trails, such as the yellow trail and the white trail. So this is really just getting into that analysis and showing what's that existing baseline of the property. From there, you know, these are starting to get into the concept and what we're looking at, and I'll get into the zones, and that's probably the best way to look through these with all of you, but really looking at like how that existing system fits within what's potential for a future trail system and looking at, you know, decommissioning certain trails, repurposing trails in ways that are more sustainable, and then adding some additional trail mileage within that network, but actually coming with a total reduction of trail mileage within the state park from 20 miles down to just about 13. So really looking at like how best that existing network becomes a, you know, that future trail network, and what is more appropriate for the site and how it's used. So based on this, we broke the site down into, and I'll get into those, into 3 experience zones based on kind of what we heard from our public information gathering at the meetings, talking to folks here, walking in the site with folks here, and really getting to understand, you know, how this fits together and, you know, where these like uses are best placed on the site. And we broke it down into having these 3 zones of a hike only zone, a shared use zone, and then a little bit more mountain bike focused zone on the southern edge of the property where it connects with the airline trail. This is in my way. Let's see if I can, I'm having a hard time getting to my, there. Oh, no, how do I move this bar? There we go. Okay, sorry, I can't get to my tabs. So looking at the site, at first at this hike only zone, so that encompasses the existing trailhead, the yellow trail and the red trail that go along the pond, and also incorporating some additional hike only trail mileage on the other side of the pond. In this plan, we had in here a connection between the existing trails and these other hiking trails, looking at a longer boardwalk. That's something that after talking with Deep, they wanted us to take out of the plan, at least for now. It may be something that can happen in the future, but based on how the power line corridor and the wetland, and needing a certain buffer from that wetland without triggering an Army Corps of Engineer permit, the only place that a true connection boardwalk between these 2 sites would be near the edge, which would also be a really great opportunity in the future for interpretation. But our conversations with Deep, they wanted to remove that from this initial plan. I think it's something that could happen in the future, but it's really something that they weren't ready to go forward with at this point. So at this stage of the plan, we are missing that connectivity between the existing monopond area and the other parts of the site. Now there
This-
is,
Sorry,
yeah.
this is Honor. Can you just give a little bit more information about why they were resistant to the connectivity? Just, I mean,
That's
like,
part-
it seems like, you know, there's parking there, and I know that's supposedly like boat only, or not boat only, but primarily boat parking. Like, I get that. But because that's hike only, you know, it's not like you'd be having the bikers park there. I understand it's probably costly. Is that their like
That's the
concern?
main-
Because it doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna go to the state for the money to do that boardwalk.
No, I mean, it was primarily cost, but it's also that they felt that was too big of a leap for wanting to have a 300-foot boardwalk, or I can't remember the length of what it ended up like. It was a very long boardwalk. I think just the process, I feel like caused them a lot of pause, and there was a lot of pushback on some of the other departments other than the recreation department on that. There was also the issue with the trailhead. So, but it was mainly the cost that became like the biggest issue. I think also just thinking of like long-term permitting, they're like, we can do this as a separate thing later and not have it part of this plan. I tried to push back on that to be like, well, it's a big idea, yes, and it's really like, it may be something you don't do for 10 years, but we just kept getting more and more pushback that they just didn't want to see it on this initial.
Who exactly is they?
It's the various departments in Deep, from the recreational side to the environmental. I'm trying to think of all the department names. Uh, the land acquisition folks, the wetlands and habitat folks, all of the other departments within Deep had a chance to look at this plan, and they were really pushing back at putting a large boardwalk in the wetland and the cost that it would take to make that happen.
Is it also the maintenance of it? Sorry, I hope I didn't interrupt you, Todd. Is it also the maintenance of the boardwalk that they're concerned about, like the ongoing?
They didn't talk about that as
Okay.
like one of their issues. I think it's just the initial, like, this is a really big project and they're not ready to take that on at this point. Now, whether that, you know, as we get feedback from folks here, and I know it was a desire in our, like, we heard a lot about it when we were doing the public engagement. But when it came to the boards and our numbers, it wasn't shown as big of a desire as what we heard on there, and that's what I think Deep saw that too. They're like, well, that doesn't seem like as big of a priority, even though we've heard all along that connectivity is a big priority. So I think how we'll deal with it is, even if we're not showing it on this plan, we'll have a paragraph in the document to talk about that, to just say like, this is potential future opportunity that should be pursued based on things we've heard. Whether we're showing the line on the map, I think it should still be there in the plan. We just are being very sensitive to trying to get this plan moved through the process at Deep, and this is very new to them as well, to have like an outside consultant come in and help them do trail planning.
Do you have any insight as to the sort of cost per linear foot of something like a boardwalk over a wetland? I know they're, very expensive, but in other projects and sort of, trail projects that we've been involved in at TPL, we've often seen the community do sort of a private fundraising to have a boardwalk, because it's not something that the state is really, their money goes a lot further when they're doing just traditional trails and trail building. And these boardwalks are, just so much more expensive that they can't justify it.
Yeah.
But we have seen success in communities fundraising. I know, Columbia is a small town, so that might be tricky, but I'm just curious about if there's any idea of what that would cost anyway.
Yeah, like my rough, like, back of the napkin is like 500,000 to $1 million to put that in. Like, it's not going to be a cheap process. And especially depending on depending on the structure, if it's helical pier, if it's like a more floating, there's different ways to do it, and it might be a combo of it. But I think, that is a factor in all of this, for sure.
Lastly, sorry, and then I'll stop. One question to the folks in the room, mostly. Dead of summer, is that passable? Like, could it be a seasonal trail? No. Okay.
No. Yeah, and where we looked, so when we were there is that existing, like, kind of user created path that goes along this northern edge of the boundary into the power line that has been used. But there you are getting into that, like, Army Corps of Engineer power lines, wetlands. It becomes a really, like, difficult and basically impossible task to PUD a trail connection in any other spot. So our solution was this, like, edge of the pond, edge of this wetland where it actually would have been like really nice views. So yeah, I mean, I think it's something that would be worth pursuing, but it's also like, yeah, what is the desire in the town to want to do something like that, and to push back a little bit, I think might be okay to be heard by Deep.
Liz, I think maybe more than a paragraph, you know, I know there's several stakeholders in the room, but from a personal standpoint, friends of Model Pond, town, just looking at the room, that's a big problem. And I'd really like to push back a little harder than a paragraph, letting them know that it's really, it would be a big disappointment to not connect the parking area of the pond to the rest of the park. That to me seems to be a core part, should be a core important part of this project. That's just my.
Yeah, I think that we had looked at that right from the beginning of getting, you know, the parking lot to the airline trail was the ultimate objective. And I mean, we have so little parking as it is, and that's a nice big lot. And it's just.
You also mentioned an issue with the trail, you mentioned an issue with the trailhead. I'm not familiar, what kind of issue would there be with the trailhead? That also Deep had expressed.
So part of that existing trailhead, it's the funding that was used to create it has like limitations in the language for technically the user group that is allowed to use the parking lot. Now, there's some things that we've talked about with Deep for expanding this parking lot, at least minimally, by introducing some accessibility, some like accessible fishing access, and maybe a small accessible loop that reroutes some of the yellow trail to be able to use some of that funding. It's really getting into some of that language of the agreement that was used for the funds for that existing trailhead that's kind of causing some of the problems, and seeing that expanded. It's really in that language that we're being limited by, and what's possible in that spot. But I mean, I will express to Kim and the other folks at Deep, like the desire to see that connectivity and how important it is. I think, I hope that they'll be more receptive. It just, that was something in some of our initial talks that they really like. That was one of the things they pushed back the hardest on.
Honor, do you think there's any kind of grants for that type of work?
For the boardwalk?
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
Um,
the idea here with this whole thing is that we develop this concept plan. IMBA puts together a plan that is, you know, sort of has Deep's hand in it the whole time. And at the end of the day, it's approved by DEP, or, you know, adopted in whatever fashion they need to do it through their process. And then we take the plan and we go for, you know, sort of, Liz, correct me if I'm wrong, but implementation money. And so the actual construction of these trails is a totally separate grant. This grant was, you know, a sort of small amount of money by all, you know, all things considered, for the planning and, you know, all the work that goes into that part of it. And then the next step would be to put this plan forward and say, we have a plan now, Deep. We're going to go for a rec trails grant for construction. And that is a much, much bigger grant. I don't know, Liz can probably speak to that a little bit more than I can, but that's, and what I think I'm inferring here is that if a connectivity is part of the plan that gets adopted by DEP, then when we apply for a rec trails grant for implementation, you know, that cost goes up by $1 million off the bat just to have that connection. And so what they probably are looking for is the approval of this plan so that we can get it funded through a subsequent rec trails grant. We can build it. And then, you know, 2 years down the line, we get some engineering designs, we get some fundraising, and we put together a connectivity plan in coordination with Deep and say, this is really important to the community. We want to do this. We've raised, $300,000. We've got, we've paid for the engineering plans. And would you fund it with a rec? And we put it forward to a rec trails grant, and Deep, gives us $500,000 or whatever it is. I mean, that I'm just like speculating here, but I think they probably don't, the rec trails grant, to put it in perspective, this year, I think there was like, I probably have the numbers wrong, but like $18 million worth of requests, and they only had 9. And 9 was a big number. They haven't had that much in a long time. And so it's a really limited pool. It's very competitive. And they've put a lot of time and effort into sort of, starting this relationship with TPL, IMBA, and the community. And so I think, all of this effort would be for what, if we're not going to go and get a rec trails grant in the next round, or, the next round, whenever the timing works out. And so they also don't want this to eat up half the budget. Like, I mean, there's so many worthy projects out there for trails that, if this is, a $4 million budget, we're not, it might even, as it is, have to be phased. I mean, I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I'll let you go. Sorry, Liz. I'm like totally speculating here. So take it
No,
with a
that's
grain of
great.
salt.
No, that's great. Like that basically is the process. So this is the roadmap for what Deep is going to, adopt for that master plan for the state park. Which, then leads it to potential opportunities for funding. So by having, even if we don't have the line on the map, if we do have it in the language and the plan is adopted with it in there as part of the language, there's still going to be an opportunity for that to happen in the future. It could be something that we're like, as funding comes up or opportunities for funding comes up, because there could be, we haven't proposed this whole, it would be hard to make this whole trail accessible to I think create the full accessibility from the trailhead. It's possible, but that wasn't part of how we were thinking of it, but that could open some other opportunities. Now there may be opportunities coming from this other side, and we'll get into that, because thinking, upgrading the White Trail to be more universal access, accessible trail, there might be an opportunity to then provide that link down to the boardwalk and get some more opportunities for funding through that. So I don't think like leaving the line off the map takes the opportunity away completely. It just is not shown in the same way that we were originally. I think the opportunity can still be there. They just, for ease of passing the plan, I think that's part of it, of just seeing like, well, that's going to take all of the money to do that one thing, and not the top priority for Deep, versus like upgrades to existing trails and creating this larger trail system, I think is more of an opportunity. And they're looking at, so it's just balancing at those needs, but also knowing that like, that this is important, so we don't want to see it disappear.
Well, Liz, I noticed where you talked about putting the boardwalk, which would be ideal, but you could move it further south and put it where it's not 300 feet. You can probably get down to 150 to 200 feet, or maybe less. I'm not sure. We'd have to look where the wetlands are. I mean, I know ideally it'd be nice to have this view, but it's kind of important to have, I mean, like the biggest parking lot we have can't get to the 90% of the park. That's kind of, or 2/3 of the park.
So, yeah, we'll get into that in a second, but the biggest issue with that is, so with this power line corridor, there is a 100-foot buffer.
You misunderstand, not where the power line is, but maybe a little further north of the power line, because we don't own the power line anyway. At least we don't know exactly where the property is. But there's like a narrow space there that go a little bit further north of where that existing trenches that people have created by driving their trucks through there. That area is much less, I mean, you're showing what probably would be the best, the best, like the Disney World, the boardwalks would be, where if we're talking about money, you can move it further south and go from maybe 150 feet from 300 feet. Just as an alternative, I mean, you're like, if you're trying to propose something, you're proposing the most expensive way to do it. If cost is the thing, I'm just looking at the thing, see where the westerly side of that red line, right there.
You're, at this point here, you're within the buffer of the power line corridor in the wetland, which then triggers the Army Corps of Engineering permitting. That's, the buffer extends out
I
to,
don't believe you're in the corner of the power lines there.
You,
what's that?
you can see the power
The
line.
power lines are probably 150 feet away, the power line's only 40 feet wide.
No, but the buffer in the wetland extends beyond the power line corridor into the wetland, actually into the park. When you look at the language of how what that triggers, even though the power line is a small corridor on the edge, that buffer extends to both sides of that and impacts like what can happen in those waters along that power line corridor. It gets really complicated, and that buffer does extend almost like out to here, which is why that we were looking at that further out opportunity. We did look at this as an opportunity. It just isn't really feasible to get that through.
Who created the buffer? Is that a buffer?
The buffer is part of the wetland delineation and the power line authority. That just becomes part of that like regulatory system.
So within a power line, you have to keep so many feet away from any power line in the state of Connecticut, you can't do anything?
If it's in the wetland,
And how big is that?
that's out to here.
What's the dimension? I mean,
It's 100 feet, or it's 150 feet.
all right, so we can go 150 feet from the power line, we could do a boardwalk, which would be a
But
lot
it's-
shorter,
which
lot
is-
shorter than your 300-foot ones, what I'm trying to say.
Which is where it was at. This is
That's not 150 feet, that's like 400 or 500 feet.
it's not.
Or are you talking about where it begins? I see what you're saying.
I don't have my scale on here.
Well, you could always draw a line parallel with the power line, and then where that goes, then you cut across the water. I mean, you can do it less, that's all. You don't have,
Okay. Yeah, let's,
we're not working hard enough to do it, I guess is what I'm seeing.
let's let Liz finish. I'm understanding, Liz, that you see the importance of this, but the state doesn't. So
Yeah.
let's deal with that later and see what the rest of the is. And
Sure.
we will, we'll come back to this
Okay.
in future years.
So
The Friends
the
of Mount
next,
Pond will take care of this. They will find the money.
We know somebody.
Let Liz finish. Her time is.
$1 million on.
Well, let's let Liz finish because
Yes.
her time is valuable. Go ahead, Liz.
okay. So now we're getting into this, what we're calling the main shared use zone, which incorporates the White Trail that's existing and links up with Mint Brook Preserve. So this zone, we've looked at kind of various access points. There were this road as a possible access point. We've looked at this other like going through potential through these fields, but there weren't any great true opportunities within this area for additional access points other than the one at the end of Lake Ridge Court. And part of this shared use system here is with the upgrade to the White Trail, providing a small parking lot for access from that end of that area right on the state park boundary there, for 4 to 6 cars within that trail. I know we've talked a lot about access and getting into, when we look at the southern part, we'll see that the airline trail plays a huge part in access to this whole system. But as for providing additional access to this side of the park without that connectivity from the boardwalk, this is the only true other access point on this northern side of the park. But also just providing more community access, and if this White Trail does become more accessible, that, you know, needing to have access for that trail type for other users at that point.
Up the Upper Pine Street access point.
Yes.
Isn't there another access point, up, Chesbro Bridge Road, Upper Pine Street?
Um,
On the far west side there?
on,
East.
up
East,
this direction, there isn't currently. There's no current, just based on the land use, yeah, there's not another access point. There is that existing kind of herd path and road from this part, but as far as current land use access, that this is really the only viable other access point from the northern side as things currently exist.
What about on the east side?
So we had looked at this, but just knowing that that road is in really bad condition and the need for an easement and the restrictions on the easement, that wasn't seen as a real good possibility for access. There's not a point really like space to provide, you know, parking within the state park itself there. And to have it offsite and through the easement, especially if there was going to be a lot of restrictions on who could use that access point, it was deemed unfeasible, and Deep's not really going to get behind that if there's a lot of restriction on, you know, users that can come into that parking lot from that side. But we did look at things coming in from this western side, and that would have to be through easements, and that wasn't seen as viable unless there was, you know, future land acquisitions that happened along with that. So I think we'd talked about the town potentially purchasing future parcels to the north where there was a desire for that. I mean, there could be potential, but there is also a lot of wetland in that northern side. So you know, getting access through there and connectivity is a little bit more difficult. Just because it is so wet in this zone, like it's very wet, and we're trying to, you know, avoid those areas as much as possible.
Does anybody have any concern about the residential nature of that access point and, you know, driving traffic through a cul-de-sac community like that?
Deep sees it as like it providing needed access as potential, and if it's a small site with 4 to 6 cars, that's not an increase, like a huge increase in access. So it's not like this would become the main trailhead for the system. It's more providing that additional community access along with some accessibility to this northern edge.
I thought you said that is the main access point for the entire shared use system.
It's the only access.
It's a secondary access point. The main access point that we've talked about with Deep, and I can get into the next one, is really using the airline trail as those main access points from the system. That the airline trail really becomes that, and as you get into this other part of the shared use in the mountain bike focus zone, that's truly where the most public access would be coming from, is the airline trail. It's approximately a half a mile along the airline trail to the east and a mile to 1.2, I think, to the largest parking lot to the southwest. And both of those are reasonable distances to get into this larger system, and utilizing that access from the recreation trail is you know, all part of that like larger master plan for the airline trail to provide connectivity into these larger systems. So looking at like how this would likely function is very much more that smaller access point just for regional use of this zone, but really the primary access point is going to be the airline recreation trail.
What I'm seeing here, it looks big, I know your mountain bike is your thing. I would envision zone 3 is wide open to the bikes and the way it's presented, I can't walk there, it's gonna be bikes flying around. Then I go to the zone 2, I believe, and that's bikes gonna be up there too. There's not a lot of areas there, there's just singled out for hikers. And we got the one hiking trails that we can't get to because we don't have a walking bridge. And so there's no really, in zone 2, there's no exclusive walking areas for people to walk in. It's all gonna be mountain bikes, basically. Right now, it's all hiking trails for the most part. So I'm a little concerned in zone 2 that we don't have any true hiking trails. Maybe we could lessen the impact on that little small parking lot if their bikes weren't up there. You got a ton of trails in that zone 1. I understand, that people love to go mountain biking, but that zone 1 is a pretty large piece of property. There's a lot of trails there. I don't see why we even need bikes in zone 2 for that matter. There's no equestrian, but horses and bikes probably don't go well together, so maybe zone 2, people walking and horses and stuff like that can be up there. Then there's also hunting, maybe they'll eliminate hunting, I don't know what the ultimate plan is, but it just seems like we don't really need all those bike trails, and it's a lot of trails, that's a large piece of property. That zone 1 is a good parcel of land for bike trails. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
So talking about the shared use system, the orange trails that become shared use for all use aren't typically the full mountain bike focused trails, which is what happens in zone 3. This orange system, it's designed to be that like shared use with beginner grades, beginner levels, so it's open to users of all ability levels. It's not a zone that's going to be that like high intensity mountain bike focus. That's what we're really focusing on, these green, blue, and black trails. Yes, they're shared use, but shared use works in it's the majority of trail systems that are out there. It does work. There should be signage, but it's not like these are high intensity trails that the shared use system becomes part of. It becomes really that system for everyone, from that youngest rider, providing opportunities for kids to get on their bike and get out there and learn how to ride, along with hiking, along with horses. The trails are meant to be wider with good sight lines. It's a system that's available kind of to everyone. And I think that's the importance of that, like, for shared use network, is providing that for everyone. And the hike only zone is continued, like there is this, the existing trail system is continue to be hike only, and preserving that part of the character, along with some of this additional hike only zone with the potential for future connectivity. So this isn't limiting the users that are out there, it's just expanding it for more opportunities for a larger group of people.
Well, so the orange trail is bikes only, or not bike, I'm sorry, is shared. What's just to the east, trying to think, our one little parking area on the west side here. Everything to the east side, is that hike only?
Hold on.
At the south end of the pond, I can't see what that.
Yes, these trails here at the south end of Mono Pond,
That's all hike only.
those are all hike only.
I'm trying to think what those trails.
And that, with the idea that the potential boardwalk would connect those hike only areas and create that larger hike only system.
How about the white trail there, it's going just south of the parking lot, why could that be? I don't see there's enough hike only trails for a place that's traditionally been hikers, has been the main function here, and we're kind of eliminating that totally in favor of mountain bikes. And I understand we're trying to produce an area for mountain bikes, but I see.
No, the site is actually used by all users right now. That's part of our initial public gathering. The existing use of the site is not just hikers, but it is mountain bikers and horseback riders using it too. that is part of the existing user group within the southern and central part of Mono Ponds. So you know,
My problem, I'm not a mountain biker, it just seems like zone one is more than enough room for bikers. And I don't really understand why we have to have any bikes in zone two, but that's me. I won't say anymore.
It's the one down at the bottom, zone 3.
Zone three, I'm
That's-
sorry, zone three, I apologize.
That's the mountain bike.
I mean, to me, my focus, would have been to make zone three, I mean, you've got miles of trails in zone three. You don't need any bike trails in zone two. And then that emphasizes the parking lot on Pine Street, the bike trail, bike people will come in there, because that's probably, I could envision that being the big crowd. So, I mean, maybe you go a little bit to make the zone two be a little bit big, a little bit smaller, and the brown a little bit bigger. But it just seems like, in particular, they're going into the area there that's the town of Columbia, so that might be an issue too.
She's gonna say.
Oh. Liz, you did say you're gonna forward this to some of the key people that you're gonna distribute it to, right? We need copies of that. I'd like to see some of the, the legend of the different trail types and whatnot would be helpful. Right.
yeah, I will send this out after this meeting.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
Hey Liz, at the community event at the winery, it seemed like there was discussion that there would be some places where there were parallel trails, one for walking, and the other one for mountain biking or biking, you know, close to it. And that was a big selling point to a lot of people who were concerned that the mountain biking was gonna take over the whole park. Is that still not envisioned?
That's not what's
And
shown.
no, so that's what this zone really becomes, is that, like, you know, opportunities, yes, there is this shared use core for connectivity within the system, and that's necessary to get to some of these places, but these beginner, intermediate, and advanced trails become the core part of the bike network and the reason why people are gonna come here. This is really, it's not necessarily just parallel trails. That's not something that we typically see as, like, you know, a side by side separated user group. I mean, you have shared use on the airline trail as it currently exists, right? Like, there's not a separate lane for hikers and bikers on that system. It is a shared use system. You know, and knowing that these shared use trails are going to be a little bit wider, they're mellower grades, there's not like the opportunities for those faster speeds, which is where these, you know, focusing that into these core zones eliminates a lot of that conflict by providing that area where mountain bikers actually really want to be and providing some really good experiences for them, but also creating this core shared use system, which allows them to get around to these other parts, but also allows like great opportunities for hikers and trail runners and horses within this larger network. So it doesn't provide necessarily exactly parallel trails, but it provides some separation of desired users or.
But they're not separate,
Yeah.
they're not separate,
Well,
bikes are going all over.
I kind of like that, frankly, Liz. I like the fact that shared use kind of go around the end, and then I know some of those deep caverns where there can be some advanced technical things for mountain bikers, and
Yeah.
I think zone 3 looks like it provides a fair amount of access to hikers and bikers. You know, I kind of like that. If the orange trails are all shared use trails with some of the mountain biking specifically designed trails for different, you know, caliber riders, seems to make a lot of sense. I like that.
Liz, I think as long as a hiker can get through zone 3.
Yes.
Without getting
I assume that's
killed by mountain bike,
Yeah, the orange one is pretty
because
shared.
that will connect the airline trail,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
has a fair amount of hikers on it, to
Yes.
the zone 2, which we hope will be primarily hikers and equestrian.
And that's likely how it will end up knowing that this is the mountain bike focused zone. And like I was saying, these shared use trails are meant to be designed to be wider, to have mellow grades. They're not full of bike optimized features or anything like that. So there shouldn't be a fear of conflict between hikers and mountain bikers. And on most systems, you know, folks are very courteous as far as what I usually see out in the woods, and how, you know, that education and etiquette and how to interact with each other. You know, that's part of the signage. That's part of like how most of these systems function. So, you know, we're not trying to put, you know, folks that are going really fast with long downhill stretches that are looking to, you know, really maximize like their speed on any of this shared use network, because we don't want to have those kind of conflicts. Like it's really meant to provide that system that folks can share, and understanding how to, you know, what that means to share the trail. Like there's our I don't think I have it in there, our typical like symbol of, you know, like that share the trail, and, you know, the bikers yielding to hikers and horses and hikers yielding to horse, you know, there is that standard of etiquette on trail use that is part of, you know, the system, that should be part of the signage that's built into this, part of the education. And the folks that we've talked to, you know, yes, we want to provide some of those bike optimized experiences where appropriate, but we're also trying to provide a space for the hikers and the runners and the horses too. And shared use doesn't negate the ability of those other users to be able to participate in that system. It's really gets down to, you know, trail user education and working with the folks out there, but also how it's designed and laid out to provide like those desired experiences, and, you know, what's appropriate for the different parts of the site.
What's the status of the existing roads out there? You just showed, are they potential use? Are you gonna do anything with the old roads?
So we're leaving in this northern part, especially the town roads. We're leaving those as is. We're providing trails that actually get around some of those larger wet areas. We're not recommending necessarily these roads be closed right now, just based on they provide access and allow for maintenance within the site. We are proposing decommissioning of some of these more eroded, steep fall line road sections that are happening within the mountain bike zone, closing off access points to the airline trail, really concentrating those into only only two on the proper airline trail itself, like reducing the number of entry points into the state park, because that's definitely been a concern of Deeps as to how the site is accessed from the trail, and not having, you know, 20 points of entry into the system. So a lot of those more problematic sites, especially that we're seeing a lot of like ATV use and motorcycle use, those to be decommissioned, and just key entry points that will have, like, you know, that signage that talks about, you know, this is what the system is, these are the user groups, these are maps that show where these different opportunities are, to really allow that. But yeah, reducing a lot of the existing, because this is the zone that has the most existing trail on the site, and some of the largest problems that need to be dealt with. But this northern part, we are leaving most of these roads as is. They can be used as part of the system where appropriate, but, you know, providing opportunities for not having to use wet sections, creating that link into Mitt Brook with another boardwalk to this site, and thinking of like this trail area is really being more of an interpretive zone, and opportunities for that to really like have signage that gets into the history of, you know, the site and things like that, as the old building sites that we toured when we were there. So yeah, some of these roads provide connectivity. I think, the gates could be improved in some areas to reduce access that is gonna be needed. But not completely shutting down some of those existing roads to the north.
I know on the 106, I guess it's the trail, is a road that runs south from the 106 and goes to the existing road. So I'm assuming at that point you must be anticipating using the old road.
Yeah, the old road was walkable in these parts here, so I think, as we toured the site, there was still a desire, it sounded like, from folks that we walked with, that of wanting to be able to use that existing network as part of some of a larger part of the trail system. But dealing with areas that were wet and providing opportunities to get around those sites, so.
Liz, thank you very much for sharing this with us. And if you could send us the document you've been sharing and the map, we'd love to study it. And we're very, very appreciative for your work.
Thank you. Yeah, I will send this out, and if you want to provide any written feedback, you can send me an email or gather it all up as a committee and give feedback that way. So whatever works for you on that. As we're moving into the next phases of this plan, we're getting to the point where we're thinking about the next steps for trail design and thinking of where we're gonna when we're gonna be doing our next site visit to dig into some more of the details of what these are. We're waiting on feedback still from Deep first for some higher level comments from the rest of their team, but yeah, I'd be happy to hear stuff from everyone here and get feedback that way, and we'll start to compile that stuff and look at what changes that we're going to make to the plan. So, but yeah, thank you everyone for comments and taking the time to meet with us today.
Thank you.
Yes.
Liz,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what is the next step? What would be the next?
We give feedback.
Just feedback.
Feedback, revisions, and then we'll be doing priorities as to what we're going to be doing for our site design, which will be happening in the spring.
And on our part, that's the Open Space Committee and also Friends of Mono Pond. We will compile everyone's comments and send you one thing so you're not bombarded.
I appreciate that. That is very helpful.
Because you probably feel like we've been shooting at you this morning. And that's not fair.
Liz, do you have a deadline that you'd like those comments back by?
Yeah, I gave, if we could have them back within 2 to 3 weeks, that would be really helpful.
That will happen.
Good.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, see you. Bye.
All right.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Honor.
Yes.
Honor, before we go, okay? We need to acquire a little more property
Yeah.
so we can get in like Jake's.
What is?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
happy to talk about that. Anytime. We should discuss it in executive session probably, or maybe not.
it should.
Yeah, executive session would be better.
Right. But yeah, there are a lot of properties around that perhaps could complement some of those areas that would be, add on to, that are more proximate to zone 1 and 2. But, and, you know, I mean, I think they're doing a really good job here, and they're trying to sort of balance all of the various demands we have in this state where, you know, mountain bikers, hikers, horseback riders, everybody needs a place to play outside. And so we're trying, you know, I think IMBA, especially and DEEP, is trying to balance that and keep everybody happy. And there's also, you know, I think it gets easy to think about, oh my gosh, there's going to be, you know, 1,000 mountain bikers on the site on a Saturday. I mean, that's just not the reality. People, you know, this is a rural area. There are other places to play. And so I don't think that that's going to be an issue. And when those things do become issues, I think the state has ways of addressing it that, you know, you basically limit somehow, you figure out a way to not police, but to limit the amount of use that a property is getting. And when properties get too much use, they get worn out and then they can't be used. And mountain bikers are aware of you know, the fact that too much use will destroy the trail. And so there will be a lot of education and a lot of signage and a lot of those things. And I just, you know, trust the process, as hard as that might be, but everybody's going to try and do what's right and do its best for the community and, you know, all the people that want to use this property that you guys worked so hard on protecting.
Right. Okay. Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Okay,
Just real quick,
yeah.
Jake's came to see you recently, right? About. Yeah, I said,
Put a gate up on his property.
yeah. Did anything else
Nope,
come up?
nope.
Yes. I think we really and truly need the Jake's property because the access in Todd's yard is not a good one.
That's, I mean, right now, everybody's gonna go his yard, his house. That's the way it's set up.
I don't have to lawyer up, but I'm not just protective of it because I don't want a parking lot there where people will be hanging out. But that it isn't, it's just, I mean, when you walk on the walking traffic on the road, and people drive too fast already. It's not regulated by cops aren't there. It's just not a appropriate place for having.
All the way
I don't think
through.
there's gonna be 1,000 mountain bikers driving there. I don't think that'll happen.
And
There's adequate places to park there now. You know, I've had several cars back there at once. You know, I just don't think we need to.
Well, my only concern
Design
is,
a park, let me finish.
I'm sorry.
A parking area that, you know, that creates more demand, you know, there. And again, it's,
Right.
yeah, it's my backyard, but it's just also, just talking with my neighbors. I think you'll find a lot of.
it's
the same
not
thoughts.
just you, it's the neighborhood.
Right, it is.
It's
And
the
just-
wood.
The same thing with Wellswood Road.
Yes,
It's. And plus, there's no place to put the parking.
right.
So I think, in my opinion, the best bet, of course, is Pine Street. We already own it. And it would just be a matter of creating it.
When at the event, I spoke with the woman, not Kim, but someone who worked for Kim. She was and she was, somewhat adamant about, you know, I expressed to her just that, you know, just it's a rural area. She goes, I know where you live and you just don't want parking behind your house. She went right there immediately. I said, no, I'm here as one of the, you know,
We
But-
park next to you all the time.
yeah. So, but she was, Deep seems to be, I know it's their contract and they, you know, own essentially the property. But I'm hoping they're listening to the stakeholders because it seems like they feel that they know they own it and can do what they kind of want. Do you get the sense that there's a good dialogue with deep, or you get a sense that they're more, we're deep?
No,
We
I,
haven't had much dialogue at all.
no,
We haven't had
They-
dialogue.
See, that concerns me.
Deep does not consider ops.
See, that's unfortunate, when
It is.
they're not taught with stakeholders and residents of the community.
We may need to invite Kim to, in
Yeah.
person, to one of our meetings, to go over this.
Can I say something? I think, my point was, if we eliminated mountain bikes in that area where you are. So that becomes more just a hiking area. That would, because otherwise, I mean, if you decide you don't wanna, you wanna go mountain biking, you'd rather come in by your house, but if the main bikers are coming off of Pine Street, of the big parking lot on the airline trail.
They will.
And that's fine, they'll come up there and they'll go up, but
Route
For that design, they will, because it's designed where that's where the mountain bike park is, there's 3 access points for that zone 3. I think if somebody from the neighborhood or somebody wants to drive up with their bike and access the trail system from behind my house, so what, they do that now. There's, and I don't think that traffic's gonna expand a lot. They used to park their cars down at the bottom of West Street. And there was a mountain bike mecca there for a while. There used to be a lot of mountain bikers there. At one point, they built stunts and all kinds of things, and then they kind of went away for some reason. So, I just think.
so what's your concern then?
You moved away.
She said there'd be 4 to 6 car parking space there.
Why build? Because I just don't want people there hanging out, making out with their, at night and hanging around there.
They can do that now.
Well, they don't now.
They don't.
And what's wrong
because-
with, 4 to 6 cars, there've been 4 to 6 cars there,
It's-
the way it is right now.
Sure, it's a well-kept secret.
So you just don't want to put label park here.
I don't want it to be a more attractive place for people to go than it is already, forcing more traffic
Well,
driving through it.
my point
What's the status on Pine Street?
Nothing. Bob, you and I have to sit at that meeting with.
Well,
Yeah.
we say that
I know,
That's
every meeting.
really important.
you need to clone me.
Yeah, well, no more excuses.
And
I keep reminding everybody, I made myself available, except I'm not available, I'm leaving for Florida in 3 hours, so I'm not available for a few days.
I
I'll be
think,
back Tuesday.
I think you just ought to take Public Works down there. Do what you gotta
I've
do.
got to run Paul's waiting for, would you forward me the plan? I don't
Oh,
get
yes.
the distribution list.
Yeah.
but
thank
Anybody
you,
wants to, anything else?
thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm not kidding. I think the project for the next year for the Friends is to come up with $1 million. For the,
We're gonna get deep on board first,
well, I think there's, I think.
I think if we came up with money.
She kind of talked on both sides of her mouth. First, she said, we'll put the trail here because we want to get the nice view of the lake. Well, and then she says, oh, we did that because that's where that's a long distance between there. We can pull it closer and shorten the border. You don't need to make it the longest spot where you could possibly put it. That's the way she's showing it.
Okay, but there was a feedback session, we got what they're doing,
Yeah.
now we know
Yeah.
what some.
We just gotta make
topics are,
noise.
put it together.
And I'll talk to Tom and we will get everybody together. We'll put the plan out, we'll look at it again.
Yeah.
I want to find out what the actual restriction is for the power line. How far do they get?
And then we will compile 1 or maybe 2, one document from each committee's
It's progress.
friends and open space and send it
We get Silverstein, all these problems will go away.
next week.
All right, thank you.
Okay, you got anything important on this agenda?
Yes, lots of things.
We're not having friends of Mount Pleasant today. This weekend.
No, Tom is away. Okay,
Oh, that's good.
all right. I have, we're gonna skip all the old business unless you have. Okay. The Pine Street parking becomes crucial. As well as we have not finished acquisitions. We've got 3 more and possibly 4. If we can wheedle some land out of
Good.
Seagull.
Silverstein's still alive? We good?
Literally.
We should go on an executive session if you want to have this discussion.
No, actually, I don't.
Okay.
Let's skip to new business. All right? And can you put the LCD up there?
No.
Did
I have to catch
anybody,
you.
did anybody read my email?
I know the old,
Did you look at it?
yeah. That's,
Good. That's excellent, because
but it's out of date.
this is, yes, we need to look at it, but what I want to do is get this committee, conservation, everybody on board to really study this and say, what have we accomplished of these goals? Okay, they start on page 117. Okay, the goals, they're way in the back, there's pages of them, and most of them are about natural resources. So what have we accomplished? You know, we protected a lot of open space. Did you know that? Did you ever sit and tick that off in your head?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so
A lot more I thought we do, to be honest.
yes, when you look at it, and if you include the Joshua Trust property and the Joshua Trust easement, if you look at especially what we've done in Mount Pond and that area, we have protected a great deal of open space. And we have something like 25 miles of hiking trails in this town. But we do not have the capacity to take care of them. If Tom broke his leg, the whole thing would fall apart. So rather than focusing on, we need more land, except to expand Mount Pond State Park. We really don't need to own recreational open space. We've got enough hiking trails. But we're not done protecting natural resources. So you can protect it by purchasing it or easement. But who's gonna take care of it? Because let me tell you, the Conservation Commission hasn't looked at the easements in town in 10 years.
That's always,
Because there's like 2-3 of us and we're getting old. Okay, so owning it is beyond our capacity, is what I'm saying. And purchasing, like if we go purchase all the land along Gifford Brook, the town can't do that. Grants are competitive, the town ain't got no money. Right?
Right.
Floating a bond for the school
Inroads and culverts.
and the storm drains and the lake. Oh, I went to the budget hearing on the lake and yeah, the lake is gonna start eating a great deal of money. So, you know, get in line and we're at the back of it. Cause what are they gonna say to us? Well, you got City Farm and got this, and even farmland. Okay, we have a very good record for a tiny town with not a whole lot of prime farmland. We have a great record conserving farmland. The just drive on 66 towards Hebron, we have 3 farms, boom, 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 right in a row, both sides of the street. Oh, okay, and Susan Mitchell's farm is conserved. So, yes, there's room to do more, but there isn't any money and there's no capacity. So, how can we protect the natural resources? Do you have any ideas?
To answer your question, I think, how do we get more people involved to be stewards and look over property, particularly younger people?
Oh, God, yes.
I mean, Tom's great, one of the Tom, I mean, like, I would go out with, Tom's such a go-getter. And he just goes and does it, he's got to learn to bring more people in, you know, kind of.
Well, he is working on that.
He's gotta work a little harder on that, cause
Yes,
I tell him, you know, anytime, I never get the phone call, I guess is what I'm saying.
I know.
And I know it's because he just does it. You know, which is great that he does it, but like
Yeah.
you said, if he breaks his leg, first of all, he hasn't anybody out there that he shows. Oh, this is what I'm, you know, so, you know, there's like maybe 10 of us in town that do this. So that if one of us gets hurt, there's 9 people still knows what we're doing. If you have one person who knows what we're doing, that's a problem.
He talks to a couple of people, we can always ask him what he's doing.
Yeah.
But he did hold a meeting and invite townspeople. And we had it in the evening so that working people could come. So we did, we had up 5 people show up. And one of them was in his 20s and somebody in his 30s. So he's got the list.
Right.
So he is working on it. Okay, so are you familiar with the lake overlay zone?
Somewhat. The area where they have good restriction, what you can do in that zone that you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, do you know how that was created?
I assume someone sat down, and drew a line around it and said that looks good.
They said, okay, that's the watershed of the lake. All right, did they buy anything? No. Did they do? It didn't cost a dime for them to create the lake overlay zone. And when I say they, planning and zoning did that. So I sat our friend Justin down, Justin Rientu, who is on planning and zoning, and he's also the chairman of the subcommittee that's rewriting regulations. So I said to him, how can we, for instance, the Gifford Brook corridor, riparian corridor, how can we protect that and make it bigger? I sat you down, we talked about this. So I said it to Justin, can we create an overlay zone for our important waterways so that we don't have to purchase the land? We're not taking anybody's land away from them. But all we would be saying is, thou shalt not clear cut within so many feet of a riparian corridor.
It's good, it's tough, because you are taking some rights away from some people.
Yes,
So,
and they did that for the entire
yeah,
A, B, and C
Yep.
watershed. Because I'm in zone B, and when I put up an addition on my garage, I had to meet all the lake overlay zones.
So what did Justin say about it? What did he say about it? That,
Well, he kind of looked like a light bulb went off in his head, but he said, I'll have to check on that.
Well, maybe that's the way.
What do you people think?
I think-
Mr. Is it a wetland?
If it's a wetland, it's a stream,
A priority,
well,
Yes.
I mean, you have that aspect too, but if it's a wetland, there are regulations already about what you can do. I don't know that you're gonna interfere too much with what's already on the books.
That's true.
Stopping fertilizing in the watershed is gonna be a bigger issue. That's an education matter as far as, for example, the lake is concerned. That's what I see as the value of this overlay zone. It would educate people, the property owners that exist in that corridor. Best practices. I don't know about regulations. I don't know about new restrictions.
I guess that would be the question, how much different would be than your wetland regulation?
Yeah, I don't see.
what's the setback from wetlands? Is it 75 feet? or-
In most areas, that they're not the high priority ones, it's 75 feet.
We do have high priority ones, it's more?
They're 150 or
All
200.
right, so maybe we need to do, and is looking to see how that would impact what we've got. Cause the wetlands are controlling, you're pretty limited what you can do.
Absolutely.
yeah,
And at least people are gonna look at it. And you're gonna get a permit. You're gonna, in other words, you're gonna. That's up.
Yeah.
But I could. Describe that next time, when I refresh my memory on the regs.
good, that would be great.
So I don't
Because-
wanna just throw out numbers off the top of my head.
Right. Because the number one resource, period, in any town, anywhere, is water. Water.
Yeah.
Because you can't live without water. And all of the water in Columbia comes from a well.
This document, the existing document describes this
Yeah,
system very, very well. I learned a lot just from her. Is it Paula
exactly.
that did that?
Paula Stahl.
Individual, right.
She did a great idea.
Hmm.
And that also, if we can make sure that it either widen, the corridor,
I guess,
That
with my
would be-
EDC hat, you wanna be careful. You gotta be, I think it's a great idea, but you gotta really look at it very individually and see what the impact would be. Cause you don't wanna shut off other things too.
What's the ad that you mentioned?
Economic Development Commission, you don't wanna create things that make things impossible to do something.
You've got a lot of industrial land along the upper
Yeah.
road, so if all of a sudden
Yes.
you make it 150 feet, can't.
What's all that
Cutting.
cutting that's going on past,
That's the new 21st Sign Plus, I think.
for what?
Sign Plus, isn't that Lisa?
Mhm.
They're gonna they're moving their business to Columbia.
Yeah, but it's not just Sign Plus, there's I think the batting cage is moving. There's a couple businesses moving back behind Dunkin' Donuts. Back there.
Okay. I don't know who mentioned this. Who mentioned it? Well, somebody mentioned that there, that's,
It's his British
Right,
in there.
back in there.
Yes. And that is one of the major aquifers. Okay, there's no mapping here. I pointed this out to Shannon Guskowski. There's no mapping here for our aquifers. And our biggest aquifer is where all the rivers come together. The Hop, the Willimantic, 10 Mile, they all come together. And but we've got Potter's Meadow, Joshua Trust property that sits on it and protects some of it. But that's also our industrial and commercial zone. Okay, and that extends up Route 6, and so does the aquifer follows up river. We've got an old Actover mill there. And our transfer station, which is well run, and they're very careful about what they do there. So that's good, but we still got the old dump. We have two old dumps sitting on this aquifer. And it's like, really? You know, and you can't do anything about that. That was poor planning long before us. But you see, so you've got to look at the aquifers. And I would really like to sit planning and zoning down. I don't know if they consider the aquifers. I don't know if they consider,
Do you have a map of it? Where do you find information about?
the aquifers. I've seen one, and I think it came from Paula at one point, but it's not in here. There's a paragraph on it, but no map.
I don't know much about that, it's something to look into.
Yeah.
What qualifies as a true Aquazar? Not every, you don't have Aquazar everywhere,
Yeah.
there are just certain locations where you have them, right?
Right,
Yeah.
and we've got,
I mean,
we've got.
what you're talking about is where the hot river and stuff is running.
watersheds, But I think we've got 3 or 4 aquifers.
I heard once a long time ago that they hit a geyser at the end of Commerce Street. They were digging a well or something there, and there's just,
That, yep,
there's
We have a lot more.
enough water
That's it.
for all of Willimantic.
Go down, you can,
Are you almost wrapping up? I've got another meeting to.
okay, so this is the direction that I'm thinking. And that we have a short period of time to get our act together to try to get these things into POCD. There's there are 2 other important things about open space that that you're probably not thinking of. And one of them is cemeteries. Both cemeteries are really almost out of, out of space.
that's not dying myself.
I know.
Yeah, too many people
They're-
are dying.
They're just dying to get into my cemetery.
Jeez.
And, the other one is affordable housing. We're gonna put that.
They've been
Where are you gonna put it?
working.
And
Well, the problem being a small town, we don't have a lot of land either,
exactly,
and then we keep
So we
making all
have
this
to be-
open space and we can't build, don't have room for that either, so.
we've got a lot, so we have to broaden our.
Well, I mean,
thinking.
don't you realize Jake's property was proposed as. Well, it wasn't affordable housing, it was senior housing, so it probably wasn't affordable.
Yeah,
That's the other big joke, I mean, senior housing, nobody can afford to live in.
well, actually, the top of the Jake's property is a viable thought. The
Yeah.
flat part up
Unless
there.
they're, yeah,
field.
proposals there, they had the design, it was approved. And then they ran into problems with the town of Hebron, and I guess the financial probably fell through, it probably couldn't afford it.
You know what I thought was always the best place for not either senior or affordable housing is the property right across the street.
Yeah, but he also owns that right over there too.
Yeah, tunnels, tells. I mean, there's plenty, there's 14 acres there or something.
It's
Right, so
Okay.
open space without taking down affordable housing.
all right. But really, I need you to do that. And we have to get this in pretty soon because.
And we also,
Flanagan's
and also
going
need feedback on this Mono Pond thing too, the trail.
Do.
When are we gonna
So
get together in that?
Expect,
within 3 weeks?
expect a special meeting.
Okay, that's my question. All
Okay,
right,
when are you coming back?
be back next Tuesday.
Okay.
So Wednesday I'll be around.
Okay,
I'll be here Tuesday, but I'll be flying.
all right. This meeting has turned into a juggernaut.
And hopefully
But-
landing.
Hopefully landing safely.
See, I tell you, you could be upside down.
Look at this and think cemetery is housing, open space, not just
2 days.
a hiking trail. Okay, think natural resources, like water, wetland, water. Okay?
All right, I gotta go. I gotta go buy wedding presents, so I gotta go.
You
Have a
go.
good trip.
Just thought, sitting, get ready, getting to go. It's,
Okay,
I never got anything.
Okay,
10:35.
we are adjourned at 10:30.
10:35, that's the longest meeting